In the dim glow of the early morning, a battered yellow taxi rolled to a stop at the curb of a bustling downtown street. The city hummed with life as vendors set up their stalls, commuters rushed to work, and the cacophony of honking cars filled the air. From behind the scratched windshield, the driver adjusted his cap, his piercing blue eyes scanning the sidewalk. He wore a threadbare uniform, the kind you'd expect from someone who had seen the grind of the job for years. A woman with a suitcase glanced at the driver and hesitated. Something about him was familiar. She peered closer through the window. The man looked up, catching her gaze. A sheepish grin crossed his face, followed by a chuckle. "Hop in," he said, his voice calm but commanding. The woman slid into the back seat, still stealing glances at the rearview mirror. As the taxi merged into the chaos of morning traffic, she couldn't help herself. "You know," she began hesitantly, "you look a lot like Elon Musk." "Ever heard that before?" The driver laughed, the sound light and unbothered. "Yeah, I get that sometimes," he said, tapping the meter. "Maybe I should start charging for photos, too." The woman chuckled, though her suspicion lingered. Why would someone like Musk be driving a taxi? The thought was ridiculous. And yet, the resemblance was uncanny, right down to the subtle smirk and the way he carried himself. As the taxi weaved through the city, the driver's demeanor shifted. He listened intently to the woman's chatter about her hectic life, her tech startup struggles, and the challenges of surviving in a competitive world. He nodded at the right moments, occasionally offering words of encouragement. What she didn't know, and what no one could have guessed, was that this wasn't a case of mistaken identity. The man behind the wheel was indeed Elon Musk, one of the richest and most recognizable men on the planet. But why was he here, disguised as a taxi driver, maneuvering through crowded streets instead of boardrooms? The answer lay in the mission he had undertaken, one that required him to shed his billionaire persona and immerse himself in the lives of everyday people. The ticking clock of a hidden agenda loomed large, and every fare brought him closer to the truth he sought to uncover. As the taxi sped away, leaving behind a trail of curious onlookers and unanswered questions, the driver's smirk deepened. This was only beginning. The taxi rolled to a stop outside a small, run-down cafe. Elon adjusted the rearview mirror as a young man in a wrinkled suit stumbled out of the cafe door, clutching a laptop bag and a steaming coffee cup. The man's tie hung loose around his neck, and his face bore the unmistakable weariness of someone who hadn't slept in days. He flagged down the cab with a quick wave, his movements jittery. Elon popped the trunk and watched as the man tossed his bag inside before sliding into the back seat. "Morning," the passenger muttered, balancing his coffee precariously on his knee. "Downtown Tech District, please." 325 Garrison Street. Elon nodded, starting the meter. "Rough night?" he asked casually, navigating the morning traffic. "You have no idea," the man sighed. "I've been working on this pitch for weeks. If this meeting doesn't go well, I'm done." "No funding, no company, game over." Elon glanced at him through the rearview mirror, his curiosity piqued. "What kind of pitch?" The man hesitated, clearly wary of oversharing. "It's an AI startup. We're trying to revolutionize data processing speeds for autonomous vehicles." "Crazy, right? I mean, who am I to think I can compete with companies like Tesla?" Elon's grip tightened on the steering wheel, though his expression remained neutral. "Not crazy at all," he replied after a moment. "Sometimes the smallest startups solve problems the big guys overlook." The man chuckled bitterly. "Easy for you to say. I doubt you've ever worried about running out of cash." Elon suppressed a smile. "You'd be surprised." As they weaved through the city streets, the man continued venting about his struggles, overbearing investors, unreliable prototypes, and the relentless grind of staying afloat. Elon listened attentively, occasionally dropping cryptic advice. "Don't focus on what everyone else is building," Elon said at one point. "Focus on what they're not building yet. The gaps they can't see." The man froze, staring at Elon in the mirror. "That's oddly insightful for a taxi driver." "What's your story?" Elon shrugged. "I've just been around." Cab pulled up to the tech district and the man scrambled out, retrieving his bag. As he hurried off, Elon noticed something on the seat, a small, unmarked flash drive. "Hey, you forgot this," he called, but the man was already gone, disappearing into the crowd. Elon picked up the drive, turning it over in his hand. A small logo on the back caught his eye, sparking a flicker of recognition. Whatever was on this drive, it was about to change everything. The flash drive sat on the passenger seat, catching the light as Elon navigated the crowded streets. His mind raced, but his expression remained calm. The logo etched on its surface belonged to a competitor Elon had been monitoring for months, an AI company known for cutting corners in their pursuit of rapid innovation. He couldn't shake the feeling that the drive's contents held the key to his mission. The hum of the city faded as his thoughts drifted back to the events that had led him here. IT started 6 months ago during a routine Tesla board meeting. Engineers had presented the latest data on the company's AI systems, touting advancements in self-driving technology. But buried in the numbers was a troubling anomaly, a rare but catastrophic failure in the decision-making algorithm. Elon had pressed them for answers. "What's the probability of this happening in real-world conditions?" "Minimal," they'd assured him. "Less than 1 in a million." But 1 in a million wasn't good enough. Not for Elon. The problem wasn't just Tesla's. Reports of similar flaws had surfaced across the industry. Companies were rushing to dominate the autonomous vehicle market, prioritizing speed over safety. Elon knew it was only a matter of time before a disaster struck, and when it did, public trust in the technology would crumble, setting progress back by decades. Determined to understand the problem from the ground up, Elon devised an unorthodox plan. He would go undercover, posing as a taxi driver. It was the perfect way to observe how real people interacted with technology, to hear their stories, and to uncover the industry's blind spots. Back in the present, Elon's eyes scanned the bustling sidewalks. Every fare he picked up was another piece of the puzzle. There was the single mother who lamented the lack of affordable transportation options, the elderly man who feared self-driving cars would leave him even more isolated, and the delivery driver who ranted about his company's reliance on faulty navigation systems. Each story painted a vivid picture of the challenges everyday people faced. Challenges Elon's world of billion-dollar boardrooms often overlooked. As the flash drive glinted on the seat beside him, his thoughts returned to the night he discovered the true scope of the problem. A confidential report from an industry whistleblower had revealed a chilling reality. Some companies were knowingly deploying flawed AI systems, gambling on the odds that failures would be too rare to attract attention. That's when he'd realized the stakes. This wasn't just about improving Tesla's technology. It was about preventing a catastrophe that could undermine the very future of AI. But time was running out. Whispers of an impending deal between the whistleblower's employer and a major automaker had reached his ears. If they succeeded, it could normalize the use of unsafe systems across the industry. Elon's thoughts were interrupted by the buzz of his phone. A message from an anonymous number lit up the screen. "The drive holds everything you need. Trust no one." His grip on the steering wheel tightened. The stakes were higher than ever, and the clock was ticking. Determined, Elon slipped the flash drive into his pocket. He would uncover the truth, no matter what it took. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows over the city as Elon's taxi pulled into a quiet corner near a bustling coffee shop. He had barely turned off the engine when a woman in a sharp blazer approached the car. Her striking features were framed by a cascade of auburn hair, and a leather satchel hung from her shoulder. "Taxi free?" she asked, her voice tinged with a hint of urgency. "Always," Elon replied, unlocking the doors. She slipped into the back seat, pulling out a notepad and pen as she settled in. "Where to?" "Central Press Building, 12th Avenue," she said, glancing up briefly before jotting something down. Elon merged into traffic, his attention split between the road and his observant passenger. Her movements were precise, her eyes scanning everything: the taxi, the meter, and most unsettlingly, the rearview mirror. "You're not like the usual cabbies," she remarked casually, closing her notepad. "What's your story?" Elon shrugged, keeping his tone nonchalant. "Not much of a story to tell. Just a guy trying to make ends meet." She chuckled softly, her gaze lingering on him. "Right. And I'm a pastry chef." He smirked but said nothing. The silence stretched as the car wove through the city. Finally, she leaned forward, her curiosity breaking through her professional demeanor. "You know, you bear an uncanny resemblance to someone I've written about. Ever hear that?" Elon's grip on the wheel tightened slightly. "Let me guess, Elon Musk." She raised an eyebrow. "You don't even deny it." "Why would I? People say it all the time." Her lips curled into a knowing smile. "I'm Julia, by the way. Investigative journalist." "And you?" "Elon," he said plainly. She laughed, assuming he was joking. But the more she studied his features, the more doubt crept into her mind. Her instincts were rarely wrong, and something about him felt off. As they neared her destination, she decided to test him. "So, Elon, what's your take on the latest autonomous vehicle scandals? Rumor has it, some companies are cutting corners to stay ahead of Tesla." His eyes flicked to hers in the rearview mirror, his expression unreadable. "Sounds like the kind of thing a good journalist would dig into." Julia's smile faded, replaced by a flicker of unease. "Maybe I will." When they reached the press building, she paused before stepping out. "This isn't the last you'll see of me," she said, handing him her card. Later that night, Elon's phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "We need to talk. I think I can help." Julia, the next morning, she was back in his cab. This time, she wasn't asking questions, she was offering answers. The flash drive secrets, the whistleblower's warning, and the mounting stakes in Elon's mission captivated her. "Why should I trust you?" Elon asked, his tone cautious. "'Cause," she said, leaning closer, "the story I've uncovered is bigger than any byline. If we don't stop this, lives will be at risk." Their alliance was uneasy, fraught with close calls and prying eyes. But as the pieces of the puzzle came together, it became clear that their combined efforts could tip the scales if they could stay one step ahead of the world. The city was unusually quiet as Elon steered his taxi through the dimly lit streets. Julia sat beside him, her laptop balanced on her knees, furiously typing away. The flash drive's contents were finally decrypted, revealing a damning cache of emails, technical schematics, and cover-ups. It was worse than either of them had imagined. The faulty AI systems weren't a minor issue. They were a ticking time bomb. One of the companies implicated in the scandal was planning to roll out a fleet of autonomous trucks nationwide by morning, despite knowing their software had a catastrophic failure rate. "This isn't just negligence," Julia said, her voice trembling with anger. "It's criminal." Elon's mind raced. He had spent his life pushing the boundaries of technology, believing in its power to improve humanity. But now, He was faced with the stark reality of how greed and irresponsibility could turn innovation into a weapon. "We need to stop this," Julia said, breaking his reverie. "If even one truck malfunctions, it could cost dozens of lives." Elon nodded, his jaw tight. But the question loomed. How? They had two options. The first was to leak the files immediately, exposing the scandal and forcing the company to halt the rollout. But doing so would inevitably reveal Elon's identity and compromise his broader mission. The second option was riskier: intercept the fleet's launch manually, but that required time they didn't have. Suddenly, Julia's phone buzzed with an alert. A news outlet was reporting on the upcoming launch, spinning it as a triumph of innovation. The trucks were scheduled to hit the roads in less than 2 hours. Elon gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white. "We don't have time to debate. We need to act now." Julia stared at him, her expression conflicted. "If you reveal yourself, the fallout could be massive. Are you ready for that?" Elon didn't answer. Instead, he pulled over and dialed a secure line. A familiar voice answered after a few rings. "It's me," Elon said. "I need you to shut down the grid controlling the autonomous fleet rollout." "That's impossible," the voice replied. "Do you know what kind of backlash this will cause?" "I know exactly what's at stake," Elon snapped. "Just do it." As the call ended, Julia looked at him, her eyes wide. "That's it? You're pulling the plug?" Elon exhaled sharply. "No, that's just plan A. We still need a failsafe." The next hour was a blur of action. Elon and Julia raced to the fleet's staging area, navigating through security barriers and evading cameras. Julia used her press credentials to create a diversion, while Elon accessed the control panel of one of the trucks. Inside, his fears were confirmed. The AI systems were already online, each truck synced to a central server. If one failed, the entire fleet could cascade into chaos. Time was running out. As Elon worked, a security guard appeared, demanding identification. Julia intercepted him, her voice firm. "I'm with the press. Do you really want to be the one who stopped me from reporting a safety violation?" The guard hesitated, but eventually backed off. "Elon," Julia hissed. "We're out of time." With a final keystroke, Elon initiated a manual override, shutting down the truck's engines. Relief washed over him, but it was short-lived. His phone buzzed with a breaking news alert. Anonymous whistleblower halts autonomous fleet launch. Company denies allegations, demands investigation. Julia looked at him, her face pale. "They're spinning it. They're going to bury this." Elon clenched his fists. "Not if I tell the world myself." Julia grabbed his arm. "If you do this, you lose your anonymity, your leverage, everything." Elon met her gaze, his voice steady. "If it saves lives, it's worth it." As the clock struck midnight, Elon logged into his personal account and posted a statement to the world. "This is bigger than me, bigger than any company. We must prioritize safety over profits, humanity over convenience. I take full responsibility for exposing the truth." Within minutes, the post went viral, sparking outrage and debate across the globe. Elon leaned back in his seat, exhausted but resolute. "Sometimes," he said softly, "you have to risk everything to do what's right." Julia nodded, a mix of admiration and concern in her eyes. "Let's hope the world listens." The sun began to rise over the city, casting its golden glow on the quiet streets. Elon Musk stood by his taxi, the world around him eerily calm after a night of chaos and revelation. His post had shattered the internet. News outlets were ablaze with coverage. Social media flooded with debates, and the company behind the faulty AI systems was scrambling to issue statements. But the man himself? He was simply tired. Julia joined him, holding 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to Elon and took a sip from the other, watching him closely. "You're trending in every corner of the world," she said with a wry smile. "Hero or villain, it depends on who you ask." Elon chuckled softly. "Let them decide. I didn't do this for the headlines." Julia studied him for a moment. "And now? What's next for the world's most famous taxi driver?" He gazed at the horizon, the weight of his choices heavy on his shoulders. "The mission isn't over. This was just one battle. There are still questions to answer, systems to fix, and people to protect. But I'll do it the way I always have, by leading with action." As the city woke up, the media swarmed, cameras and microphones thrust in Elon's face. His disguise was no longer necessary. The world knew who he was. "Mr. Musk, why were you driving a taxi?" one reporter shouted. Elon paused, his voice calm and measured. "Because sometimes, to understand the people you're trying to help, you need to walk or drive in their shoes." His words resonated, sparking discussions worldwide about the responsibilities of innovation, the power of humility, and the cost of making a difference. He walked away, flanked by Julia. The world buzzed with admiration, curiosity, and hope. The journey wasn't over, but Elon Musk had proven one thing: even in disguise, a true leader always reveals themselves not through their name, but through their actions.